understand. Also, you're my kind of like, you give me diplomatic immunity because I want to moan about foreigners in this country.
Okay, so my diversity body armour type thing.
You're my checkbox champion.
Okay, good. Right, diversity, hi, I'd like to be part of it.
Exactly, you are it.
I don't believe in meritocracy anyway, so...
Yeah, you wouldn't be here if there was meritocracy, Mayuran. You'd be back of the queue. No, you really wouldn't, because we love Mayuran and we love how outspoken you are. Now, here we go again. Empirical evidence of the fact that a load of people have come into this country from abroad and they're committing crimes at a far higher rate than the domestic-born population. We've got statistics. It backs up everything that we suspected, everything we knew anyway. And we're not talking about the pickpocketing, although that is, I think, largely perpetrated by foreign gangs and the like as well. We're talking about extremely serious offences. The number of foreigners in prisons for serious violent sexual and theft offences has surged over the past year alone. Official data published for the first time. Finally, we get to have some statistics. 1,731 foreign criminals in prison are in prison for sex offences. 1 in 8 of them, sex offences. 10% of all sex offenders in prisons. Now, yes, you could turn around and say, oh, well, 90% of rapes and sex offences are therefore committed by Brits. Number one, I'd say this, with these statistics, when you say Brits, it doesn't slice and dice the culture of people who are now considered British, but also it's a massive overrepresentation.
Yeah, if something's disproportionately represented in a certain ethnic minority, it means there is a systemic problem in that ethnic minority. We just need to make that very, very clear. I'm Sri Lankan Tamil, right? So I remember when I was growing up, there was a little bit of a problem, it seemed like, I don't know the statistics, but of credit card fraud amongst sort of Tamil gangs in sort of like Tooting and Wimbledon, places like that. I reckon there might have been a disproportionate amount of Tamils involved in credit card fraud at that time. I don't know if that's the case now. If that's the case, it means there's a systemic problem in the Tamil community, my community, with credit card fraud. Now, we need to extrapolate that principle across the board with all ethnic minorities when it comes to sexual crime, when it comes to the grooming gangs. If there are a predominantly or disproportionate amount of Pakistanis involved in this clannish group child sex offences against white working class girls, it means there is a systemic problem there. In that ethnic minority. Afghans, 22 times more likely to commit sexual crime. There is a systemic problem amongst Afghans. We must start talking like this, because if we have a mass immigration policy, this experiment, you're going to have awkward conversations. It's inevitable.
But it comes down to this as well. You spoke about sort of credit card fraud there and Tamil gangs, and also we went through a period where a lot of credit card fraud was being perpetrated by Eastern European gangs a few years ago. A lot of cannabis is being grown by the Vietnamese. This is largely because a particular gang with their compatriots find a gap in the market, bring all their mates over to make a load of money, and so therefore when people are being arrested, they're all from the same country because they're all in it together. But that doesn't necessarily reflect a cultural or societal difference. When it comes to sexual offences, it's slightly different, isn't it? Because what to me that exposes is a mindset, an upbringing, a way of thinking, an inbuilt ideology, an appetite, or a morality that is skewed and not the same as ours.
So, Alex, you're pointing at something. I'm just going to actually just bring it out the woodwork. What's the age of consent in Iraq?
Yeah, it's about 9, isn't it?
It's about 9 years old. Where has that come from?
The Quran.
It's come from the Hadith.
I don't know.
It's come from Muslim sources. I mean, Aisha is the one, the Prophet's wife is commonly quoted in Bukhari as being of 9 years old when she was married. Now, you can say that's 7th century Arabia, and I think the age of consent in England in like the 10th century was something like, 10, 11 years old. So, things have moved on. If you're a liberal Muslim, you will look at that and say, that's 7th century Arabia, we're in 2025, it doesn't apply now, new laws apply. We have to reinterpret and understand things differently. If you're an Islamist or a very conservative Muslim, you will look at these things and start saying, no, if the Prophet did it in the 7th century Arabia, it should be applied to 2025 because everything the Prophet did was perfect and we can't look to sanitize it in light of liberal Western values. And that is the conflict within the Muslim world. I don't know what is the right Islam. It's not for me to say. I'm not a Muslim. But we as British citizens should say this is the right Islam that we should have for this country. And I've long said we do not need a definition of Islamophobia because we have the right laws in place to protect decent Muslims who love this country. What we need is an Islamist definition. actually theologically worked out from the interpretation of the Muslim sources, say ring-fenced it out, create a firewall between liberal Islam and the Islamist ideology and say we do not want this part in our country and this is absolutely fine. That's what needs to happen going forward. Angela Rayner doesn't understand any of this.
Don't understand nothing, that woman. The thing is about the whole concept of Islamophobia is you're basically telling people to not pattern seek, aren't you? Because at the end of the day, am I scared of Islam? Yes. Is that my fault? No. I'm scared of Islam, frankly, because they have been the common denominator of terrorist attacks in the Western world in recent years and indeed in their own countries and further afield. I'm scared of it because there has been this common denominator, like you said, with grooming gangs. I'm scared of it because when it comes to the overrepresentation of sexual offences, it seems to be men from countries who have what I consider to be very backwards attitudes towards women, because in this country we don't stone women to death or make them cover up their ankles and their heads. And so that is why I am scared of it. And someone telling me you're not allowed to be scared of that, that is a crime, is completely contrary to sort of innate human biology. Of course I'm going to be scared of it. I'm a woman.
Yeah, no, what? This is an ideology we're talking about. You know, you can criticise communism, capitalism, and you can criticise Islam. Then people might say, hold on a minute, what about anti-Semitism? You know, we've got a definition of anti-Semitism, what we should have Islamophobia. The Jewish situation is different because it is an ethnicity as well as a religious belief system as well. So you can be a non-believing Jew, but you cannot be a non-believing Muslim, right? And that's the difference here. So that's why the Islamophobia definition is completely redundant, and all it will do is suppress free speech, create more suspicion, create more frustration. Exactly what they're doing now. I mean, we've got this kind of a spy network now trying to...
Let's talk about that, because that is really chilling. I mean, look, it's not like it's brand new information to us. We saw this during COVID. We saw posts being censored. And the problem that we have as society, look, part of me, and I hate saying this out loud, but part of me thinks when you're about to run into some sort of mad insurrection, which we're on the cusp of, and that is entirely the government's fault. They've left people with no choice because they've done nothing about the most severe pressing issues of our age. But part of me thinks it's better to try and stop people going tonto than just pretending that that's not going to happen. The best way of doing that, of course, is listening to people and actually dealing with the emergency in your country. But what is so harrowing is they don't seem to be doing that, and the way that they want to approach people with perfectly valid concerns about what they can see happening in front of them. I had Brendan O'Neill on earlier, and he's saying it's tyranny. It's tyranny, actually, when you're actually oppressing people, when you're doing things to them, and then you're actually preventing them talking about it. It is malign, it is pure evil, it is wicked, as far as I'm concerned. We saw this during COVID, and a lot of the stuff they silenced during COVID and demonised, whether people said, what about actually if we let this virus spread among the healthy people of this country who are unlikely to die, that might actually be a bit better than destroying the economy. You monster, you want to kill your granny, you're evil. It might be that this very complex virus, this newfangled creation that seems to have come out of a wet market right next to a virology lab, could have come out of the virology lab. No, that is xenophobic. You're a conspiracy theorist. The problem is, what we have learned is when they're trying to shut us up, it's because we're actually right on it. We're close to the truth.
Yeah. Look, what's happening here with the Labour government, Diane Abbott had made a really good point. She said Keir Starmer hasn't got a feel for politics, right? He's effectively been parachuted in and he hasn't actually had to deal with people. He's very awkward amongst the British public, but very comfortable snuggling up to Ursula von der Leyen. That's his position. So when you don't have a feel for politics, you don't understand the policies, you don't know how to fix things. So when things go against the grain, when things start falling apart, you get frustrated and then you get more authoritarian. To keep things together, you have to get more authoritarian. Labour have a problem in that they have a hardware problem. They are ideologically possessed in the wrong direction. And what's happening at the moment is reality is confronting their ideology and it's starting to rupture. It's starting to rupture on three fronts. The first front is the civil unrest that we're starting to see across the country with the migrant hotels. The second thing that's starting to rupture is the economy, with the IMF firing and warning signs basically to Rachel Reeves saying, get your act together, otherwise it's going to be a sovereign debt crisis. And finally, politically, he's losing control of his backbenchers with Corbyn on the left, Farage on the right, and just this whole disgruntled situation. He can't cut state spending. So Keir Starmer is literally losing control of the country. I will repeat that again. He is losing control of this country as we speak, and hence you're going to start seeing more authoritarian measures to make up for his absolute loss of control.
Well, this is the other thing, because everything the Labour Party seems to be doing is contrary to common sense and what they need to do. And you brought up a little bit there, the IMF and our crisis when it comes to our economy. And good old Donald, when he came to open his latest golf course, basically said to Sir Keir Starmer, the windmills you're sticking up everywhere ain't going to work, sunshine. They're ugly.
So bad. So bad.
But you know what? It's the first time in my life that I want to say I'm jealous that I'm not in the EU anymore, because he's bullied the EU and said, you're going to buy our gas.
Yeah.
Instead. And what we found out today is because stupid Ed Zero has banned all sort of oil and gas in the North Sea, he's now having to import more of it than ever before. Our energy prices are through the roof. Listen to the Donald. Donald said, you are sitting on a gold mine of prosperity. You can become energy self-sufficient. You can become an energy exporter. Think of the geopolitical clouts that gives you. Instead, not only are we going to end up subservient to wacky nations who hate us and pay through the roof for the privilege, this is all an act of self-harm.
Yeah, I mean, when Trump comes in on the scene and JD Vance, I feel like they're like hostage negotiators. I feel like we are being held hostage to our government. They're coming in, sort of trying to negotiate with Keir Starmer a way out of the situation. And so, yeah, I mean, how awkward was it? Keir Starmer, the globalist, the international law-loving individual, and then Trump, then the nation state, the America first. These are two worlds colliding. And he was giving them a playbook. He's basically saying cheap energy, low tax, law and order, and immigration. That's it. You finish, you get those things right, you'll get re-elected, which is complete antithesis of what...
And you'll save your blimmin' country, and that's what America wants to see. It wants to see us prosper. And I'm slightly disappointed that he wasn't playing the tariff game with us. I mean, look, I don't want our economy to be destroyed, because we're actually in a trade deficit with America. We sell more to them than we buy from them, which is why he's being quite gentle on us. But he's actually used tariffs in a very strategic way when it comes to, we want you to sign up to free speech. We want you to get rid of the mad self-harm of net zero. We want you to actually control your borders, because all of this stuff is destroying Western civilization, of which you are the fount. And he hasn't done that with us.
No, I mean, what Trump represents is he will throw the status quo out of the window, the rule book out of the window, and he will just go for pure strength and conviction. Now, if we can somehow smuggle in 25,000 odd Afghans plus dependents secretly with super injunctions, that's one of the biggest amazing events a government has had to pull off, I think, in modern history, right? If you can do that, you can deport millions of illegal immigrants in this country. I believe the state can do that. You know, we've had Keir Starmer recognise Palestine as a state. Apparently, it violates international law. It has no real borders, no stable government that can deal with foreign affairs.
Oh, international
so it's
law.
Not really, but what does Lord Hermer do, who is wedded to international law, apparently? He starts reinterpreting the international law. It's it is actually fine to label Palestine a state. What does that show you? It shows you what Suella Braverman said before, that as an Attorney General, you can reinterpret international law in line with the successes of this country and what the needs of this country. So international law, this myth, this joke of international law that we can't deport or turn back the boats or whatever it is, it requires strength and conviction to bulldoze our way through that. That's what Trump represents. That's the leader we need going forward.
The problem is with our political class is they've dined out on all of these leftist ideologies. It's helped them get where they are. It's what gives them a sense of purpose and morality and conviction and power. It's what they've bowed down to and martyred themselves in front of the altar of for all of their lives. So expecting them now to suddenly go, oh look, now it's under the spotlight and is being put into practice, it is found wanting, it is not in the national interest. It's very hard to persuade these people to let go of that madness, the mad sort of Marxism of their youth.
There's a kind of religiosity to people like Lord Herman. They see international law as divine law. They see themselves as the high priest. And if you look at Jess Phillips, when she's confronted with the obvious situation statistics with the Pakistani rape gangs, what does she do? And when she's asked about it, she pivots to toxic masculinity.
Oh, it's men.
She can't say it. This is a mental dysfunction. This is
cognitive dissonance.
This is a clinical dysfunctionality of astronomical proportions that is actually affecting the safety of women and girls and the whole integrity of this country.
It does make you wonder how on earth we've got so many brainwashed nutters now running the country and in our civil service. On that note, actually, there's been a suggestion that Whitehall needs to sort of make huge efforts now to get people from the working classes in our civil service. I actually say, for once, once in my life, good on you. I think that is the correct route to take, because the problem is we've packed through all of the organisations that hold the levers of power with a small minority of people with actually very extreme views. Yeah,
I mean, it's an echo chamber, there's groupthink, there's activist judges. It would be a good idea. It's like DEI in reverse somehow, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
So they're actively going to pick, probably, hopefully, white working class. Why not? Because they seem to be doing not so well in the education system. Give them a helping hand. We need difference of opinion. We need the ordinary person. We need those people protesting outside the migrant hotels, those women, those worried about their families, their daughters. Their opinion needs to be in Whitehall, front and centre. And I think that's the problem. They're simply dismissed as nuisances. I think Brendan O'Neill said that the government looks upon them with contempt.
Yeah.
It looks at them as gammons, people just to brush aside, annoyances. And that's where you see the censorship coming from before.
Myuran, it's been fantastic having you in the studio. Wow, we've rattled around a load of points, haven't we? There's not much that we didn't touch there. That was really quite invigorating. If you want to have the same feeling that I've got by being in the studio of Myuran, you can join me in the studio after the break, because we're going to be taking some of your calls. 0344 499 1000 is the number to dial if you'd like to have a chat. You can also use that number to send me a WhatsApp message or leave me a voice note on WhatsApp. 87222 is the number if you'd like to text me instead. If you're going to do that, you've got to write talk before your message. Going to take a short break now, but don't go anywhere, because in the democratic home of conversation, Talk Towers, it's your opportunity to throw in your two bits just after this.